So AOC gave her Democratic National Convention speech, and I think we should talk about it because there's really a lot we should take away as leftists, or some part of the left, some part like the progressive left or anti-establishment, whatever your political affiliation may be, that is anti-establishment or anti-corruption. There's stuff that you can take away from what she has to say and what she did, whether you like her or not. So I think we should definitely take the time to talk about it. So without further ado, let's watch it. Let's run the clip.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, en el espíritu del pueblo, and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Okay, so yeah, as you saw, and I'm glad I didn't spoil it for anyone who is watching this for the first time. She formally seconded, I should say, her nomination towards Bernie Sanders, which I'm not too familiar with the procedures, but procedurally it's something that she can do because the motion was declared to nominate Bernie Sanders, and as someone in the convention, she can formally second the notion. I'm not too familiar with the logistics behind that, but it's a real chess move, and I give her a lot of props because she's doing what progressives in the past, progressive politicians in the past have been criticized of not doing enough of, which is using their power to understanding the concept of power and how to use it and mobilize it for progressives, not just to compromise with the establishment wing of the Democrat Party, who as history shows, they're not willing to meet us even, not even a tenth of the way. They're just not going to do anything. They're sellouts. They're letting the billionaires rob the treasury blind, and don't really stand with us with meaningful criminal justice reform, yada yada yada. So and they won't even give AOC the screen time, and they clearly would rather have John Kasich, who's a Republican, speak with more time than AOC, even though she has amassed a lot of popularity among the Democratic Party. They're not going to give her due. They want her out of the party. It's clear. They don't want the left. The left could just kick rocks as far as these establishment goons are concerned. So So kind of the point that AOC is making, sort of, there's an aesthetic point to why she's doing this, because that might be your question that you might ask, is why the heck is she just nominating Bernie Sanders out of nowhere? What's even the point of that? Well, it's to show that we exist, and to show that, well, and there's an aesthetic to, there's an optimism and hope that she's portrayed, in the face of just no hope at all. Of basically, she's declaring victory for Bernie Sanders. That's what she's done in her 1 minute. In her 1 minute and 30 seconds is to give what would have been a victory for Bernie Sanders. And there's many reasons. There's many victories that the left has, although of course many defeats, including we have frickin' Biden, Harris, and as you see from this that I showed, that's what we're facing with. That's kind of what the YouTube algorithm is telling me, and that's what we're faced with. And I don't want to get too much into why we got there with the primary, but what AOC is saying is that, hey, there's this movement and it's growing, and it's unstoppable. It can't simply be stopped by what the party's trying to say. Okay, AOC, you get no screen time. And they had a choice between giving her only a minute and giving her no time, and then getting backlash for it. So they gave AOC time. And what does AOC do? She seconds the notion to nominate Bernie Sanders, which is It's important that we mobilize power to show, hey, like, we're not messing around. We're not just going to cave in to whatever the hell that you do. We're not going to be rubber stamps for your neoliberal corporatism and dishonesty and lack of integrity and corruption. We're not gonna play that. And that's what AOC is saying. That's what she's doing. And she's tying all the issues together in the time she's given. So at the beginning, she opens up with changing from our neoliberal colonial America. She's starting with a social issue and then tying it to the systematic income inequality that we have. She's tying together. She's showing that these issues intertwine. And that's her speech. It's focused on policy, and of course she doesn't. What I mean by that, of course, is she's not mentioning like Medicare for all or the formalities, but just kind of a general overview of the vision of a utopia, and really articulating well a better America than the status quo, which is just it's just really sad, and I'm just at a loss for words every day. I can barely construct sentences to record this video, but I'm trying. I'm doing it, and thanks for staying on. And if you're still at this point, because I'm kind of rambling more than I want to, but she's tying the general sort of problems of America. She's of course we've heard the solutions. We've heard Medicare for all. We've heard the Green New Deal. Obviously, the solutions are there. She doesn't need to even really talk about the solutions when she's talked about them before. We all know them, and she's got to work with the time she's got. So she's going into the problems and the vision to solve the problems, which is in itself important, because because we're not very good as Americans in portraying the problem, in my opinion, and in many leftists' opinion. We don't. We often try to ignore our past colonial and racist history, and we're not introspective enough about that general context. And some people, I get it if you don't agree. It took me a while to eventually agree, but that is what she is conveying, and you might criticize her for being too cultural and not enough on sort of the bread and butter superficial issues. But you can't completely criticize her because she is on point with the issues as well and tying it to the cultural stuff. So that kind of is what her speech does. And there's one more thing that it kind of does, which is ignore Joe Biden, ignore Kamala Harris. They're irrelevant to the conversation. And there's an irony because what the Democrats are trying to do is say, is imply through the way this convention is structured and the policy or rather lack thereof that the Biden-Harris campaign is adapting from the left, and adapting in general. They don't have any policy. They don't speak policy. They know that their policy sucks and stinks and doesn't reflect what is popular. Guys, the left's policy, Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, yada yada yada, and even criminal justice reform is legalizing marijuana. All of that, that's popular. That's over 50%, bipartisan, within party lines. Independents, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, etc. They all want these policies that Bernie has brought forth, and the movement is continuing to bring forth. And sorry, I was lost in thought. But the policies are popular, and the Democrats are really shooting themselves in the foot by bowing down to the corporatists. And just because it benefits them and their donations or whatever, and they're bought and sold, we get it. They're trying to play with their hand tied behind their back so they can win and reap the benefits. And it's just kind of sad to watch that they're so blatant about it, because they kind of feel that they've taken power and don't need to listen to the people. So they're trying to make AOC and all these policies that are backed by an overwhelming majority of the country irrelevant. And in trying to completely block out the conversation, the DNC just, they voted against Medicare for all, for example, and I believe legalizing marijuana by an overwhelming majority. They're not in line with the people at all. It's bogus. It's bull crap. It's just terrible. And they're trying to make all of that. They're trying to make all these populist policies irrelevant, though what they're doing is making themselves irrelevant. So AOC in her speech doesn't even acknowledge Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because they bring nothing to the table with the change that needs to happen. So the message that I think is important and central to take out of this, and ties to why I'm even bothering making these videos in the first place, is we should really think about how we can be the change, and not just through superficially voting every 4 years or even during midterms every 2 years. We have to be involved locally, and that's what has driven me to be an independent voice in the city of Bloomington. So I want to end this video by tying AOC's speech to the local level, because we're not going to get much of anything whoever wins the November election. We can talk about how we can try to quantify the harm reduction with Biden Harris winning over Trump Pence. I'm willing to have this conversation. I don't know honestly the harm reduction in the case. I'm open-minded to that, though. At the end of the day, we need to be the change, and we need to look through other recourses than just at the federal level. We have to look at the state level. We have to look at the local level. And if you also live in Bloomington or Monroe County, there's a long way that local leftists and populist activists have gone with trying to bring Bernie's message and bring the progressive message to the local level, and it's of fundamental importance, and why I'm here, why I'm doing this, why I'm even bothering. So if you're listening, thanks for listening this far. I'll try to conclude here. We should take from AOC's message that we have to look at what's relevant to the conversation and to the movement. And to do that, we have to be involved at the local level. With these protests that have been happening in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, and particularly Black Lives Matter Bloomington, the Bloomington chapter of Black Lives Matter. We've been trying to get meaningful reform. It's not enough to just hold a sign and protest. You have to talk to local government officials and even go as far as bullying them to get the policy at the local level that we're looking for, because it's really just not going to happen at the federal level. At least it's far from a guarantee, and we have to push at all levels, fire at all cylinders. And what AOC is telling us is that the Biden-Harris people, we can't count on them. We have to think about how we take it upon ourselves, the movement itself, and not just the politicians, to be the change. So that's what we're doing here, and we have to do it at the local level. Other levels are important too. I'm not saying that I'm an and person, not an or person. So I think all levels are important, but I'm specifically trying to focus my energies at the local level, because that's where kind of the power is that's available in this current climate in Bloomington, Indiana, and kind of my humble opinion, and we have to think about what strengths we have as individuals, and be creative, think outside the box, the way that AOC is doing with this speech, and do what we can to change everything. So that's all I have, and let's continue throughout our day, push local officials to defund police departments, and not just and then also think about what the alternatives are. So it's not enough to say defund the police. We have to fund, for example, Bloomington Mass Transit. We have to fund HAND at the city level, and at the county level, we have to concentrate our money towards rehabilitation services that they have available, and we have to really do our homework on the budget. And anyway, I'm digressing here, but that's what we got to do. We have to focus at the local level and wake up the next day, think about how we can be the change ourselves. And with that in mind, I wish you thanks for watching, and I wish you all, I'm going to quote Edward Mora, or I can't remember his name, but it was a quote from Mr. Morrow. He was a fire McCarthyism, and he said the following: "Good night and good luck."